Hey y'all, Tanny Cooks here, and today I'm going to show you how to make the best southern cornbread dressing. We made our cornbread the night before as well as our stewed turkey necks, and y'all, when I tell you we're going to season this up, you won't believe how delicious it is. So let's get to cooking. These are the ingredients that I'm using for my cornbread dressing. I am using red bell pepper as well as green bell pepper. I like red bell pepper because I think it's festive. I'm also using onion and a few stalks of celery. I'm using 2 eggs because I made a 13x9 pan of buttermilk cornbread the night before. I'll have the video of me making this cornbread by itself linked in the description and the comments. You also want to use saltine crackers, and I'm going to explain in this video later why it's important to use day-old cornbread. The seasonings include poultry seasoning and sage. I'm also using cream of chicken soup. Notice that this is unsalted, so be sure to get the unsalted kind, otherwise it'll contain too much sodium. This is my homemade turkey broth that I made the day before with turkey necks, and I have a recipe for that as well. I'm using saltine crackers as I showed you earlier, but you could also use Ritz crackers or day-old biscuit or day-old white bread. There's some flexibility with what you use in the base of your dressing. And these are my beautifully stewed turkey necks. You can eat this meat straight as. We're going to peel some off the bone and use it in this delicious meat dressing. I also have a separate video for this that will be linked in the description and the comments. So in less than 1 minute, I'm going to explain to you my process for making turkey necks. These are very lean cuts of meat, not much meat compared to bone, but that bone to meat ratio is going to make a very delicious stock. So first we clean them. I'm using white vinegar and some lemon in my water. This is cool water, and you want to let it soak for a few minutes, 30 minutes. With your hand, grab a piece of the film or casing around the turkey neck and use your knife to cut away that film from the turkey neck. Cut away from yourself so that you don't hurt yourself and you don't need that fatty part. Add the clean turkey necks to a big pot and then cover them all with water. Add your dry seasonings as well as your vegetables, including garlic, onion, celery, carrot, and let it stew down for a couple of hours until the meat is fall off the bone tender. We're going to drain this delicious stock to separate it from the meat, so we have delicious turkey stock, and then you can use this in many applications. We are going to put this in mason jars to hold it overnight until we make our dressing. We also have this beautiful meat that you can eat. You can put it over rice, make gravy, and you can use it for this cornbread. Now, with this turkey neck, all I'm doing is peeling the meat off of the bone and cartilage. You want to be very careful that you don't have any sharp or pointy bits in your meat. You just want just the meat to go into this cornbread dressing recipe. So now we did all that yesterday. What we're doing the day of making our cornbread dressing is cutting up our fresh vegetables. So you see me cutting open my red bell pepper. I'm cutting around the sides of it to try and keep all of the seeds in the core. I like to get most of the seeds in the core just to challenge myself. You'll notice that there were a couple of seeds I had to clear away. But after I cut it into long strips, the red bell pepper and green bell pepper, I turned the strips sideways and then cut these into a small dice, as you see me doing here. I want to cut all of my vegetables in about the same size. My celery has been washed and I break it in half and peel away the fibrous strings. This is the part that gets caught in people's teeth that they don't like. So I like to discard it before I even start cutting up the celery. I'm going to use the same technique with my celery by cutting it into long strips. And then once I have all of the celery cut into long strips, I'm going to turn it sideways and cut it into a very small dice. I'm using 2 or 3 stalks here, but if you don't like celery or any one particular vegetable that I'm using, you can feel free to leave it out and cook your dressing your way. I'm adding minced garlic in a jar. And I'm also chopping up my yellow onion. I am going to end up using this whole medium onion. I cut it across sideways and then I turn it and cut it lengthwise so that it's very easy for me to slice it and get a small dice in the onion. I'm cutting this onion the same size as my other vegetables. All of these vegetables will be lightly sauteed and have seasonings added to it, so it's going to smell so good and give this dressing such a delicious flavor, so you don't want to leave out the vegetables. My onion, my celery, my red and green bell pepper, and then I also have that garlic that I showed you. So I'm onto my stove. I am adding a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil into a pan and adding in my vegetables. I don't want these to blacken or get too dark. I just want them to get soft and translucent. So I'm adding them to my pan, and my pan heat is on just a medium-high heat, not too high. It smells so good in here. Now I'm adding my seasonings to the hot pan because heating up your seasonings will help them to bloom and just become more aromatic and tasty, especially the poultry seasoning and sage. If you don't like either one of those, you can leave one out, but I recommend at least trying to use one. I use both because I absolutely love the flavor. It is so gorgeous and delicious. These vegetables would be good just sauteed by themselves with some rice, actually, but we're going to use them in the cornbread dressing. Now, you want to be sure to taste it, and if you feel like it needs more of one of your seasonings, go ahead and add it. So, my cornbread was cooked yesterday. This is what it looked like. So delicious. This 13 by 9 pan made 12 big pieces. I think I ate one. So I'm making this dressing with 11 big pieces, but this was kept in my refrigerator overnight. And now this is my turkey stock that was in the refrigerator. You'll notice some of the fat floated up to the top, and it's kind of gelatinous now, but we're going to reheat that so that it's more liquidy as we expect for stock. So now that my vegetables have finished sauteing, I'm adding them to a big bowl. You can see how they cook down a lot. Now I'm adding my can of cream of chicken soup that is unsalted, so I can control the salt level by adding the salt that I want. I'm giving that a stir with my vegetables, and you can see my meat. Now the total meat I'm using here for my 13 by 9 pan is about 3.5 to 4 cups of turkey meat. You can add the amount that you like, but I find this to be a nice amount for the flavor that I like. I'm stirring in my meat. You'll notice one handful, and then I grabbed about half of my crackers and I'm cracking them in my hand, but they're still in big pieces. As we stir, the pieces will break up a little bit, and I'm doing the same thing with the cornbread. I'm breaking it up in my hand in big pieces. Look at that, y'all, because we do not want our cornbread dressing to be mush. If you want it mush, then you would make oatmeal or grits, right? We're making dressing. So notice I'm adding just a couple of tablespoons of liquid as well because I don't want everything to mush up into a soup. And I keep saying that because that really is disgusting to me to eat people's dressings that is like that. Some of these pieces are going to break up as we stir it, and we want some texture. So I am not adding all of my cornbread at one time because I want to keep a good balance between the liquid I add and the cornbread. And notice I moved my egg to the center, the front of the screen, but I didn't add it yet because it's going to be important as we mix up our cornbread dressing to taste it to make sure the seasoning is on point. And I don't want to taste it once I have added the raw egg to it. So the egg is going to be the last thing that we add. So at this point, I got a separate clean fork just to give it a taste to make sure the seasonings are on point. If it's not, then I can add more seasoning. And you're going to see me add a little bit more here, a little bit more pepper, a little bit more poultry seasoning and sage. You could add more garlic or onion powder. It's up to you, but that's the reason you taste it, to get the flavor that you like. Remember, our cornbread doesn't have seasoning, so we're adding seasoning at each level. And look at how I mix it up. It's fully incorporated. Now I added more cornbread. You'll notice some pieces are still big, and I want it that way because the top will have texture when we're finished cooking it, but the inside will melt in your mouth, and that's what we want. In my opinion, this is the best way to make cornbread, and this is why we're using day-old cornbread. If this cornbread was fresh out the oven hot, it would all disintegrate when we added all the other elements and stirred it together. So day-old cornbread or biscuits is important. I'm adding my meat by the handful because I want to be sure to save some towards the end to make sure I can make sure it's some on top as I cook my dressing. I also added my liquid, maybe 1/4 of a cup at a time, just to make sure it wasn't too much liquid. So the exact ratio of liquid to other ingredients is going to depend on your personal taste. All in all, I used about 5 cups of my homemade turkey stock, but you don't want to add it all at one time because it will depend on how much your cornbread and your crackers absorb. So as you make this cornbread dressing 1 or 2 times, you'll get a better idea of what you like and what your preference is. Now I'm adding my dressing. I'm adding my turkey stock, and you notice some of it looked gelatinous because it didn't heat all the way up in the microwave, but that's okay. It will thin out as it cooks. Now, look, I'm turning it over gently because I don't want to make it mushy. I have my non-stick pan, but I am adding a little bit of spray olive oil. and I'm turning my cornbread dressing over into the pan. You'll notice that you do see some big pieces, and that is absolutely intentional. Why? Because we don't want it mushy. Now, I only added half of my dressing because I wanted to add a little bit more poultry season on top just to make sure every bite of this dressing has delicious flavor. Now I'm adding the second half of the dressing mixture into the pan gently. And look at that, y'all. So I am smoothing it out to make sure there's meat. You can see the meat that's near the top. We're going to bake this at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 to 55 minutes until it is golden brown on top. It smells so good. It looks so good. And guess what, y'all? Yes, it tastes so good as well. Now, you do want to let this rest for a good 10 or 15 minutes before you try to lift it out the pan so that it can set and firm up and not break apart when you pull it out of the pan. But look at this on the plate, y'all. Cornbread dressing. I had some crock pot turkey breasts, some of my collard greens, and baked macaroni and cheese. Y'all, this is so delicious. And please do not feel like you have to save this recipe just for a holiday. You can make this dressing anytime you want down home comfort food. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel.